My hands are still shaking, like violently. NGL, I never thought I'd be posting something like this, but I literally just walked into my house and found evidence of my wife's affair. I'm Mark, 45, and Brenda and I have been married for 18 years, practically our whole adult lives. We have a teenage daughter, Chloe. This morning started like any other, but then a flat tire turned my whole damn world upside down. This morning started out totally normal, just another Tuesday. I was heading to pick up some supplies for work when, bam, flat tire. Of course, it had to happen in the parking lot of that big box store, nowhere near my usual mechanic. So there I was, sweating, wrestling with the jack, feeling utterly pissed off about the whole thing. The universe, it turns out, had much bigger plans for screwing with me. I was just about done swapping it out for the spare when this massive, jacked-up pickup truck, like one of those you see in Texas, pulls into the spot right next to mine. It was shiny, loud, and just generally obnoxious. IDKY, but it caught my eye. The driver's side door swings open, and out steps this tall dude, probably mid-40s, cowboy boots, a bit of a swagger. Chad Dixon. My mind registered the name almost instantly. Brenda had mentioned him a few times. Chad from customer service, always with a kind of casual dismissal, like he was just a coworker. Nothing to think about. Then the passenger door opened, and Brenda stepped out. My Brenda. She was laughing. Not just a polite chuckle, but a full-on, head-thrown back, bright, boisterous laugh. The kind she rarely used with me anymore. The kind that used to make my stomach do flips when we were younger. My world just stopped, like someone hit the pause button. I could hear the clang of the lug wrench I'd dropped. She was in her work clothes, but her hair was a little messy, a little wild, not like she'd just come from home. And Chad had his hand on her lower back, a casual, intimate touch, as they started walking towards the store entrance. Then, NGL, I watched in pure, unadulterated shock as their hands intertwined. They were holding hands, like a couple. My wife, holding hands with Chad Dixon. My mind went completely blank for a second, then a million thoughts hit me at once. Is this real? Am I dreaming? Did I miss something? Brenda, my wife of 18 years, the woman I built a whole life with, our daughter Chloe, our house, all of it. Just a few weeks ago, she'd been complaining about Chad, saying he was a bit too friendly, a little too persistent. I'd shrugged it off, typical work drama. Red flag, Mark, huge red flag. TBH, I kind of laughed it off then. Now I felt like an absolute idiot. I watched them disappear into the store, a gaping hole opening in my chest. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone trying to unlock it. I knew I couldn't just leave. My spare was on, but I wasn't going anywhere, I had to know. So I started my car, slowly, keeping my distance, and waited. It felt like an eternity, but eventually they came out, still chatting, still too close, though their hands weren't joined this time. They got back into his big truck, and I followed them. I followed them, numb, a knot of ice in my gut, all the way across town. It was like I was outside my own body, watching a movie. My heart was pounding, but my mind was eerily calm, just processing, observing. I couldn't believe it when they pulled into my driveway. My garage. He dropped her off, a quick kiss on the cheek, a lingering touch. Then he backed out and drove away. Brenda went inside. A few minutes later, her car, our family car, pulled out of the garage and she drove off to work. Her normal shift, her normal routine. I waited until I knew she was gone, then I drove back, pulled into the now empty garage. The house was silent, too silent. It was almost midday. Chloe was at school. The silence was deafening, amplifying the dread that was choking me. I walked through the door, and it didn't feel like my home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. Every step I took echoed the emptiness inside me. I went straight to the master bathroom. I don't know why, it was just instinct. And there it was. The shower floor was still wet. Not just a few drops, but clearly recently used. The fog still clinging to the mirror. The towel was damp in the hamper, the faint scent of her shampoo mixed with a different, musky cologne I didn't recognize. It was undeniable. It wasn't just a clandestine meeting at the store. They had been here, in our home, in our bed probably. My stomach churned. I felt like I was going to throw up. Every single thing I thought I knew about my life, my marriage, my wife, shattered into a million pieces. I stood there staring at the wet tile, the world spinning around me. This wasn't some minor disagreement or a bad patch. This was a betrayal so profound it felt like a physical blow. My entire life, 18 years, was a lie. What was I going to do? How do you even begin to unravel something like this? How do you tell your daughter? The thought of Chloe hit me like a fresh wave of nausea. I had to pick her up from school in an hour. How could I face her? How could I pretend? I took a shaky breath, splashed some cold water on my face, and tried to compose myself. Tried to put on the mask of normal dad. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I managed to get through the pickup line without completely losing it. Chloe seemed fine, chattering about her day. Each word she said, each innocent question, just twisted the knife deeper. I couldn't go home. Not yet. Not with this bomb waiting to explode. I drove us to the park, one of our favorite spots, the one with the big oak tree where we used to have picnics. We sat on a bench, the playground bustling with younger kids, oblivious to the world-ending news I was about to drop. Chloe, I started, my voice cracking. I saw something today. The words felt like sandpaper in my throat. I tried to explain, to make sense of the senseless. Your mom, I saw her with another man. The tears started then, hot and uncontrollable, running down my face. I couldn't stop them. I was sobbing right there in the park, like a broken man. They were holding hands, and they came to the house before she went to work. I think she's having an affair. Chloe was quiet for a long moment, just looking at me. I expected tears, anger, confusion. But she just sat there, her expression surprisingly serious, almost adult. She reached out and put her hand on my arm. Dad, she said, her voice steady, let's go home. We need to talk to her. Together. Walking back into that house with Chloe felt like I was entering a pressure cooker. Every step was heavy. My heart was still pounding from earlier, but now it was a cold, hard thud against my ribs. Chloe, bless her, was a rock. Her hand was still on my arm as we walked in, a silent anchor. Brenda was in the kitchen, humming to herself, chopping vegetables for dinner like it was just another Tuesday evening. The audacity of it, honestly. She looked up, bright and cheerful, a forced smile on her face that I now saw clearly for the lie it was. Hey, you guys are home. What's up? I was just thinking of ordering some takeout. What do you two feel like? She sounded so casual, so normal. It was sickening, like she hadn't just spent the morning with another man in our home, then lied about her entire day. Chloe, God love her, stepped forward. Her voice was quiet, but it had this steely edge I hadn't heard before. Mom, we need to talk. Brenda's smile faltered just a fraction, a tiny flicker in her eyes. Oh, everything all right, baby? You look a little, serious. She tried to play it off, reaching for Chloe's hair, but Chloe subtly pulled away. I just stood there watching her, trying to keep my own face neutral. My hands were balled into fists in my pockets. NGL, I wanted to scream, to smash something. But I had to be calm for Chloe and for the truth. Brenda, I said, my voice surprisingly even. How was your day? Was it busy at the office? I watched her, every muscle in my body tense. She turned to me a little too quickly, her eyes darting away for a split second. Oh, just a regular Tuesday. Totally slammed. Had a huge meeting with Mr. Henderson this morning. Then a company lunch. They brought in sushi. It was actually pretty good. Had to chase down a few client reports. You know how it is? She rattled it off, a rehearsed script, complete with a little eye roll about how hectic her job was. The blatant lies just flowed out of her, so effortlessly. My stomach twisted. Chloe took a deep breath. Mom was, she said, her voice clear and cutting through Brenda's charade. Were you at the house this afternoon with Chad Dixon? The air in the kitchen instantly thickened. Brenda froze. Her hand, which had been reaching for a potato, dropped. The color drained from her face faster than I thought possible. It was like watching a switch flip. The cheerful, innocent mask shattered. Her eyes went wide, darting between me and Chloe, then fixing on me with an almost desperate accusation. "What are you talking about, Chloe?" she stammered, her voice suddenly thin. Then she turned to me, her eyes blazing. "Mark, what did you tell her? What kind of sick lies are you feeding our daughter? That's ridiculous. I was at work, obviously. You're gaslighting me." Gaslighting, that word. From her. After everything. The rage inside me flared, but I held it back. Chloe, though, wasn't having any of it. "Don't even try that, Mom," Chloe said, her voice completely devoid of emotion. A cold, hard fact. "Dad saw you in Chad's truck, and he followed you back here. You were in our garage this afternoon." She paused, letting that sink in. "And if you're going to lie again, I'm going to call Mr. Henderson right now and ask him about your busy day at the office and your company sushi lunch and whether Chad Dixon was there too." She even reached for her phone, pulling it out of her pocket, her thumb hovering over the dial pad. Brenda's eyes went from wide panic to a desperate scramble. "No, Chloe, stop. Don't do that. Mr. Henderson, he's not even in the office right now. He's at a conference or something. You can't just call him like that." She was practically hyperventilating, her carefully constructed facade crumbling right before our eyes. The lies were falling apart. I stepped forward, putting a hand on Chloe's shoulder. "Brenda," I said, my voice low and steady, "you've been lying. We both know it." The simple truth hung heavy in the air. There was no escaping it now, no more denying, no more gaslighting, just the stark, ugly truth. She looked at us, truly looked at us, and something in her broke. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of remorse, NGL. They felt more like tears of being caught. Okay, fine," she choked out, her voice ragged. "Yes, I was here with him, but it was just a mistake. I didn't want to explain it. I didn't want to hurt you guys." A mistake, that's what she called it? My blood ran cold. Chloe, bless her, wasn't letting her off the hook. "A mistake, Mom? Coming here with that idiot? Is it a mistake, or are you having an affair?" Her words were sharp, direct, cutting through the flimsy excuses. Brenda finally crumbled. She sank onto a kitchen chair, burying her face in her hands. The sobs started, raw and guttural. I didn't mean for this to happen," she wailed. "I fell in love with Jerry." Jerry. She called him Jerry, not Chad. A fresh wave of disgust washed over me. Jerry. Like he was some long-lost love she'd just rediscovered. Not some dude from customer service she'd been sneaking around with behind my back. In our bed. In our home. I felt a cold, hard clarity descend upon me. There was no fixing this. No coming back from, "I fell in love with Jerry." 18 years. Gone, just like that. "Get out," I said, my voice flat, devoid of all emotion. "Pack a bag. Leave. Now." Brenda lifted her head, her face blotchy and tear-streaked. "Mark, where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care," I told her. "Just not here. Not with us." Brenda actually tried to argue with me, like I was being unreasonable. "Mark, where am I supposed to go?" she repeated, her voice dripping with self-pity. NGL, it made me sick. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there cold, dead inside. "That's your problem, Brenda, not mine. Pack what you need for a few days. You have an hour." Chloe was right there watching, and Brenda knew she had no ground to stand on. She eventually went, dragging a small suitcase, still sniffling, still trying to make herself the victim. The minute she was gone, I felt a shift. It wasn't relief, not exactly. It was a cold, hard resolve, like a switch had flipped in my brain. I knew deep down that I fell in love with Jerry wasn't the whole story, not by a long shot. There was more to this, I could feel it. The very next day, I had the locks changed on every single door in the garage. No more keys for Brenda. No more secret access. My first call was to a divorce lawyer. I didn't waste any time. I needed to know my rights, how to protect Chloe, and how to protect what was left of our life. Mr. Harrison, the lawyer, was sharp and pragmatic. He listened to my shaky, truncated story without judgment. He told me that in our state, infidelity isn't usually a huge factor in asset division unless there's financial misconduct. But, he said, it could impact spousal support. And crucially, it was important for emotional leverage and for Chloe. His advice was clear. You need evidence, Mark. The more concrete, the better. He suggested discreet surveillance. Hidden cameras, inside and outside the house, just to cover your bases. You never know what she might try to do or say, especially if she thinks she still has access. He also recommended a private investigator to document Brenda's movements and confirm the extent of her relationship with Jerry. So that's what I did. The next few days were a blur of numb, almost robotic actions. I ordered the smallest, most discreet security cameras I could find online. Placed one in the living room, one in the kitchen, and a couple around the perimeter of the house, pointed at the entryways. I told Chloe what I was doing, explaining it was to protect us. She just nodded, her face still serious. Then I called Frank, the PI Mr. Harrison recommended. Frank was ex-military, quiet, and efficient. We met at a coffee shop, and I laid it all out. He took notes, asked precise questions, and told me he'd start immediately on Brenda and Chad Dixon. It felt dirty, invasive, but also necessary. I needed to know the truth, all of it. Mr. Harrison also stressed that I needed to record all future interactions with Brenda. Protect yourself, Mark, he said. She's already shown she's willing to lie and gaslight. Don't give her another opportunity to manipulate the narrative. So my phone was always ready, audio recording set to go, whenever Brenda called or texted, and she did call and text. Oh, did she ever? It was classic love bombing, honestly. Apologies flowing like a river, begging for forgiveness, claiming she was confused, that she made a terrible mistake, that she still loved me, loved us, that she could fix it. Please, Mark, just talk to me. I'm so sorry. I messed up so badly. I love you. You know that. I want to come home. My phone buzzed constantly with her desperate pleas, but I just ignored them. Or if it did respond, it was short, emotionless, strictly business. I'm not discussing this over text, Brenda. All communication through lawyers. I couldn't afford to be swayed by her crocodile tears. My focus was concrete evidence, protecting Chloe and protecting what was left of my life. Chloe was my constant. She was incredibly resilient. She'd seen her mom's breakdown, the leases, the Jerry confession. Her disappointment in Brenda was palpable. How could she, Dad, after all this time? She'd asked, her voice small but firm. It's okay, Chloe. I'd told her, hugging her tight. We'll get through this together. As she stood by me, a fierce, unwavering loyalty that meant everything. In the evenings, after Chloe was in bed, I started going through all our joint financial statements. Bank accounts, credit cards, investment portfolios. Every single transaction for the last year. My lawyer had suggested looking for anything out of the ordinary, any unexplained withdrawals, suspicious purchases. It was tedious, depressing work, but I was methodical. I updated all our passwords, secured all my personal and financial documents, created new folders on my computer for legal docs. I was building a fortress, brick by painstaking brick. One night, while I was meticulously going through Brenda's old jewelry box, looking for any important papers or hidden safe deposit keys, something caught my eye. Tucked away beneath a tangle of costume necklaces, in a small velvet pouch I'd never noticed before, was a key. It was small, old-fashioned, with an intricate, ornate design etched into its head. It wasn't a house key or a car key or a key to any lock I recognized in our home. My heart started to pound. This wasn't just a key. This was a secret, and my gut told me it was probably connected to Jerry. Frank, the PI, came through with his first report a few days later. It was a thick file filled with photos and timestamps. His surveillance confirmed what I already knew, but it still hit hard. Brenda and Jerry, or Chad, as I mentally corrected myself, were practically inseparable. Regular lunch dates, secret meetups, even a few evenings where she'd clearly snuck out after dropping Chloe off at a friend's. The photos were damning, showing them holding hands, kissing, laughing, the kind of intimate behavior that shredded any lingering hope of just a mistake. But the real kicker was Frank's background check on Chad Dixon. The guy had multiple aliases. Multiple. And a history of significant financial instability, including bankruptcies and small-time fraud accusations that had never quite stuck. This wasn't just some random office romance. This was a red flag the size of a billboard. My gut churned. I still had that ornate key from Brenda's jewelry box. It nagged at me. So I took it to a local locksmith. The minute he saw it, he nodded. Safe deposit box key, sir, old school. Probably from a local bank or a private vault service. A safe deposit box. My mind immediately went to family heirlooms, important documents. My grandmother's antique engagement ring, for example. A gorgeous Art Deco piece that had been in my family for generations. Brenda had always kept it safe, usually in a locked-in compartment in her dresser. But now it was gone. I checked the dresser the night I found the key, and the compartment was empty. I needed to know if it was in that box. Getting a court order to access the box was a hurdle. Even with Mr. Harrison's help, it took a few days, but we finally got it. I went to the bank, my lawyer by my side, heart pounding. The vault manager unlocked the box. It was empty. Completely and utterly empty. My stomach dropped. I stared at the hollow space, then at Brenda's signature on the access log. She'd been here multiple times. The last entry was just 2 weeks ago. This wasn't about safekeeping. This was about something being removed. That's when it clicked. The ring. My grandmother's ring. I called my bank frantically, asking if they had any record of what had been stored in our joint safe deposit box. They couldn't tell me specifics, of course, but the last few access dates coincided perfectly with some unexplained cash withdrawals I'd found in our joint account statements. Brenda had been systematically emptying it. I rushed home, my mind racing. The ring. It was priceless, not just monetarily, but sentimentally. I felt a cold dread. Had she sold it? To fund this affair? To give to Chad? I started calling local jewelry stores, describing the ring in detail, the unique setting, the specific cut of the diamond. Most clerks were polite but unhelpful, until I called Precious Gems downtown. A young woman, Clara, seemed to hesitate. I think I remember that ring, she said slowly. It was quite unique. I appraised it maybe 3-4 weeks ago. My heart leaped into my throat. Do you remember who brought it in? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yes, she said. A woman. She said her name was Brenda, and she was with a man. Tall, cowboy boots. He did most of the talking, actually. Said it was an inheritance piece they were liquidating for some urgent business. Did they sell it? I asked, barely breathing. Yes, Clara confirmed, to a private buyer we work with. The man, he facilitated the whole thing. He seemed very in charge. She looked a little hesitant, now that I think about it. But the funds were transferred directly to an account he specified. My blood ran cold. Chad Dixon, he wasn't just having an affair with my wife. He was fleecing her and us out of family heirlooms. This wasn't just a breakup. This was criminal. I immediately called Frank, updating him, expanding his investigation. I need you to look into Brenda's recent spending, I told him, my voice tight with controlled fury. Anything she's bought, acquired, especially anything expensive. And I need to know everything about Chad Dixon's finances. Everything. Back at the house, a new wave of suspicion washed over me. I remembered Brenda's old car, still parked in the garage. She'd used it for years, but lately she'd been driving our newer SUV, claiming her old car had issues. I went out to the garage, flashlight in hand, and there it was, on the back seat, her custom-made, expensive leather briefcase. She'd used it for important meetings, always carried it with her, almost never leaving it unattended. Why was it here now? My hands were shaking as I unzipped it. It looked normal, a few papers, a pen, but as I ran my hand along the bottom, I felt a slight protrusion, a hidden compartment. With trembling fingers, I found the clasp and opened it. Inside were 2 items, a small, generic-looking flash drive and a burner phone. This wasn't just an affair. This was something premeditated. My fingers fumbled with the burner phone, turning it on. No contacts, just a few encrypted messages I couldn't access. But the flash drive, I rushed inside, plugged it into my laptop. Folders, so many folders, and in one of them, a trove of photos. Not of Brenda and Chad, but of Chad. Chad in fancy suits, in luxury cars, on yachts, holding expensive watches, standing in front of what looked like lavish properties. He was posing, flaunting, like some kind of twisted influencer. And the photos were recent. A chilling thought formed in my mind. This wasn't just an affair or even just theft. This felt like part of a much larger, darker scheme. What was Brenda involved in? What had she gotten herself into? The dread tightened its grip, a cold, hard knot in my chest. My wife was mixed up with a con artist, and she had just handed him my grandmother's ring. Frank's next report hit my inbox like a bombshell. It was a comprehensive financial deep dive, detailing every transaction for Brenda and Chad Dixon over the past year. What I saw made my blood run cold, then boil with a fury I hadn't thought possible. There were huge, unexplained cash withdrawals from our joint savings and checking accounts, spanning months. Not just a few hundred here and there, but thousands, tens of thousands. And right alongside those withdrawals, corresponding large deposits into Chad Dixon's personal accounts. The timeline was precise, sickeningly so. Every time Brenda drained a significant chunk of our money, Chad's balance mysteriously inflated. This wasn't just an affair, or even just Brenda foolishly giving away money. This was systematic. What Brenda had vaguely referred to as her investments, things she'd been cagey about for months, muttering about new opportunities and high returns, were clearly Chad's fraudulent schemes. He was using our money, my money, to fund his lavish lifestyle and whatever other cons he was running. Frank's report even had a section on Chad's MO. He had a long history of targeting professional women, usually in stable, long-term relationships, for these investment opportunities. He'd use romance, charm, and love bombing to manipulate them, slowly drawing them into his web, convincing them to part with their own money, or worse, their family's money. It was a pattern, clear as day. Brenda wasn't just another conquest. She was a mark and a facilitator. That burner phone I'd found in Brenda's briefcase? I finally cracked it. Took me a few days, but I managed to bypass the simple password. What I found inside was worse than anything I could have imagined. Texts between Brenda and Chad, hundreds of them. Early messages were all heart emojis and "miss you, Jerry." Then a slow, insidious shift. Chad pressuring her, not subtly but directly. "Baby, I need that transfer to clear by Friday or the deal's off. Did you talk to Mark about refinancing? We need more capital for the next phase." Brenda's replies showed her hesitation, her fear. "I don't know, Jerry. Mark's getting suspicious. I took out another 5K today, but that's all I could do without him noticing." But then she'd always follow up with justifications. "I know this is a big risk, but I believe in us. I'm just helping you build our future, baby." She was convincing herself, believing his lies, believing she was part of something grand, something with him. NGL, reading her texts, I felt sick. She wasn't just a naive victim. She was an active participant. My wife was helping a con artist steal from me, and possibly from others. This wasn't just an affair. This was criminal. This was outright theft, and Brenda was complicit. The thought hit me like a physical blow. Not just complicit, she was recruiting for him. And I went back to Brenda's old car, drawn by a morbid curiosity. I tore it apart, systematically, panel by panel. And there it was, hidden deep in the console, behind a plastic panel I had to pry off. Another flash drive. This one was even smaller, more discreet. I plugged it in, my hands shaking again, but this time with a cold, clear focus. This was it. This was the deeper truth. The flash drive contained a treasure trove of damning documents, spreadsheets, PowerPoints, detailed plans for Chad's investment scams, complete with projections, fake company names, and elaborate explanations of how investors would see massive returns. But the real gut punch was the section outlining Brenda's role. Her name was explicitly mentioned. She was tasked with partner recruitment. Her personal network was listed, names of friends, colleagues, even distant relatives, categorized by potential investment capacity. There were even scripts for her to use, instructions on how to build trust and overcome objections. My wife wasn't just caught up in an affair. She was a co-conspirator, actively helping Chad defraud people. She was using her position, her relationships, to funnel money into his schemes. My grandmother's ring, our savings, It was all just fuel for his fire, and Brenda was holding the match. The emotional impact was immense, a crushing weight of betrayal. But underneath that, a cold, hard resolve solidified. This wasn't just about a divorce anymore. This was about justice. I meticulously collected every piece of physical evidence, backed up every digital file, screenshots of texts, copies of bank statements, Frank's reports, the contents of both flash drives. Everything was categorized, labeled, and put into a secure folder for Mr. Harrison. This evidence was airtight. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. My lawyer, Mr. Harrison, thought it was risky, but I had to do it. I needed to hear it from Chad himself, on record. So I arranged a meeting with Chad Dixon. I pretended I was confused, hurt, and just wanted to understand Brenda's perspective, hinting that I might be willing to reconcile if I understood what drove her away. Chad, NGL, ate it up. He thought he was smooth. We met at a public coffee shop, somewhere I knew would have other people around. My phone was in my jacket pocket, recording, just like Mr. Harrison advised. Chad rolled in wearing those damn cowboy boots and a smug grin. He was arrogant, totally full of himself. "Mark, man, tough break," he started, shaking his head with fake sympathy. "Well, Brenda's a good woman, but she just wasn't getting what she needed from you, you know? She needed someone who understood her ambition, her drive." He even had the gall to brag about his business success, going on and on about his visionary investments and how Brenda was finally seeing her potential with him. He spoke about Brenda like she was a naive sidekick, a conquest, nothing more. It made my skin crawl. "So these investments," I said, keeping my voice calm, "are those the same investments that involve my grandmother's ring and those substantial cash withdrawals from our joint accounts?" His whole demeanor shifted. The smugness evaporated, replaced by a flash of aggression in his eyes. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "What are you talking about, Mark? You accusing me of something?" "I'm talking about grand theft, Chad," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "And fraud. I know about your aliases. I know about your history, and I know you stole my grandmother's ring and funneled our money into your fake schemes," Chad scoffed. But there was a flicker of panic in his eyes. "Stolen? Brenda gave me that ring. It was for a joint investment, our future. She was tired of you holding her back, man. She wanted to make something of herself." He even had the audacity to try and play the victim, saying it was compensation for Brenda's lack of commitment to him, like he was the one being wronged. "And the money?" I pushed. He leaned back, a sneer twisting his lips. "Brenda willingly provided access to those funds and accounts, buddy. She was all in. Said you were too boring, too conservative. She practically begged me to let her contribute. She wanted to be a player in the game." He threw Brenda under the bus without a second thought, confirming every single suspicion I had about her complicity. She wasn't just a victim. She was a willing participant, aiding and abetting. I didn't say another word. I just stood up, turned off the recording, and walked out. I had everything I needed. I drove straight to Mr. Harrison's office, feeling a cold, hard sense of purpose. I handed him the recording, along with all the other evidence. Frank's reports, the flash drives, the bank statements, the texts. "It's all here," I told him. "Everything you need." Mr. Harrison listened to the recording, his face grim. When it was over, he picked up the phone immediately. "This is beyond a divorce, Mark," he said, his voice firm. "This is criminal." He called the police, filing a formal report for grand theft, fraud, and whatever other charges they could stick to Chad and, yes, Brenda. A detective, a no-nonsense woman named Detective Miller, took my detailed statement. She meticulously went through all the evidence I'd gathered. My weeks of cold, calculated data collection paid off. She was impressed, almost surprised by the thoroughness. "You've built a solid case, Mr. Harrison," she told my lawyer. The very next day, a temporary restraining order was issued against Chad Dixon. He was ordered to stay away from me, from Chloe, and from our home. A small victory, but a necessary one. Brenda found out about the police involvement almost immediately. I assumed Chad called her, panicked. My phone started blowing up with her calls and texts. She was frantic, screaming, crying, begging me to retract my statement, accusing me of trying to ruin her life, saying I was gaslighting her by getting the police involved. "You're trying to send me to jail, Mark. How could you do this to me, to Chloe?" I didn't respond to a single one, just forwarded them all to Mr. Harrison. He sent her a concise email. "All communication regarding legal matters must go through my office." Chloe, meanwhile, heard bits and pieces, but I finally sat her down and explained everything. The full, ugly truth. Her mother's affair, the stolen ring, the fraud, Chad's manipulation, and Brenda's active role in it. I showed her the text, the plans on the flash drive. Her face was a mask of shock and pain. Her mother, the woman she looked up to, was not only cheating, but was involved in a criminal scheme that had stolen from us, from her own family. "Mom, she actually did all that?" Chloe whispered, her voice barely audible. The betrayal in her eyes was heartbreaking. How could she? She was going to steal from her friends too? It was devastating for her, but she deserved to know the truth. The full, unvarnished truth about her mother's financial and emotional deception. The official divorce papers were filed, citing everything: adultery, financial misconduct, severe emotional distress. I wasn't holding back. This wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was about exposing a criminal and protecting what was left of my life and Chloe's. The divorce proceedings started, and Brenda's legal team, bless their hearts, came out swinging. They tried to deny everything, of course. Adultery? She was just confused. Financial misconduct? Just poor investment choices. Emotional distress? I was the one who was unstable, fabricating stories, being manipulative. Classic gaslighting amplified by lawyers. NGL, it was infuriating, but I expected it. Then Mr. Harrison brought out the heavy artillery, surveillance footage from our house showing Brenda letting Chad in, him leaving in the morning. The detailed financial records, transaction by transaction, matching our withdrawals to his deposits. The contents of the flash drives, outlining the scam. And the kicker, Chad's recorded confession, where he not only admitted to taking the ring, but explicitly threw Brenda under the bus, detailing her complicity. The air in the courtroom felt like it had been sucked out. Brenda's lawyers looked like they'd seen a ghost. Her own face went from defiance to utter horror. As the legal wheels turned, the police investigation into Chad Dixon gained serious momentum. Detective Miller was relentless. My evidence opened the floodgates, and they started uncovering more victims, other women Chad had defrauded, using the exact same playbook. His house of cards was collapsing, and the case against him solidified with every new piece of information. Chloe, bless her heart, was struggling. The emotional fallout was immense. Her mom, the person she trusted, had betrayed not just me, but our entire family, and was now facing criminal charges. The public scandal was starting to bubble too. Neighbors were talking, hushed whispers everywhere. It was brutal for a 15-year-old. So I got her into therapy immediately. Her therapist was amazing, helping her process the betrayal, the anger, the grief. My absolute priority was her well-being. Brenda, meanwhile, became more and more erratic. She'd show up at Chloe's school trying to talk to her, even though I'd specifically told her to communicate through corners. She'd leave frantic, tearful voicemails on my old number, accusing me of trying to destroy her, threatening to tell everyone my secrets, whatever that meant, NGL. Her behavior was so unhinged that Mr. Harrison easily secured permanent restraining orders against her, not just against Chad. It was sad but necessary. She was a danger to herself and to us. The repercussions for Brenda didn't stop there. Her workplace got wind of the police investigation and the financial irregularities. Given her role in customer service and the clear conflict of interest with Chad's scams, she was fired. Just like that. Her career, her reputation, utterly destroyed. Amidst all this chaos, there was an unexpected outpouring of support. Family members, friends, even some of Brenda's former colleagues reached out. They expressed sympathy, offered help, and shared their own shock and disgust at Brenda's actions. It was a lifeline, a reminder that we weren't alone. It reinforced that I was doing the right thing, no matter how painful. With Brenda's erratic behavior and the criminal charges looming, I knew a custody battle was inevitable. But I was ready. Chloe's emotional and physical safety was paramount. I wouldn't let Brenda's instability affect her further. Mr. Harrison assured me that with all the evidence of financial misconduct and emotional distress, my chances were extremely high. To ensure every last penny was accounted for, I enlisted a financial forensics expert. Their job was to meticulously trace and recover every single misappropriated asset. Our joint savings, my grandmother's ring, any other funds Brenda might have funneled to Chad. It was going to be a long, painstaking process, but I was determined to get back what was ours. Brenda's public reputation was in tatters. The news, though not explicitly naming her, hinted heavily at the local professional woman involved in a sophisticated investment fraud scheme. Her social circle completely dissolved. She was isolated, a pariah. In the meantime, I had moved swiftly to freeze all joint bank accounts and assets. No more unauthorized withdrawals, no more attempts to hide or transfer money. The financial bleeding had to stop. I had to protect Chloe's future, our future. This was a war, and I was going to fight it with every tool at my disposal. The hammer finally dropped. Chad Dixon was formally charged. Multiple counts of grand theft, fraud, and chillingly, identity theft. Detective Miller had done an incredible job, digging up so much more than I could have imagined. What started as my personal nightmare had grown into a full-blown criminal investigation. Once the charges went public, several of Chad's past victims came forward. Women he had romanced, swindled, and left financially ruined. Their stories were heartbreakingly similar to Brenda's, but without the complicity. They strengthened the prosecution's case immensely, painting a clear picture of Chad as a serial con artist. Brenda was compelled to testify against Chad. It was brutal to watch. She tried to play the victim, painting herself as naive, manipulated, and coerced. But her testimony was a mess. Inconsistent, self-serving, riddled with half-truths. Her own lawyer couldn't control her. NGL, she looked pathetic, utterly stripped of all dignity. Every time she tried to minimize her involvement or blame me, her credibility just took another hit. The prosecution barely had to cross-examine her. She discredited herself. Then came the divorce ruling. The judge didn't mince words. Given the undeniable evidence of Brenda's adultery and egregious financial misconduct, the court ruled decisively in my favor. I was awarded primary custody of Chloe, no shared custody, given Brenda's instability and criminal involvement. I also got the family home and the vast majority of our marital assets. It was a clean sweep. To add insult to injury for Brenda, the court ordered her to repay me for my grandmother's stolen ring and all other misappropriated funds. The amount was substantial, a debt she had no way of ever satisfying. On top of that, the judge made the temporary restraining order against her permanent. Her continued harassment and erratic behavior left no doubt that she was a threat. Despite winning everything, there was no joy, just an overwhelming sense of finality. The house, the place where Chloe grew up, where Brenda and I built a life, felt tainted. The memories, good and bad, were too heavy. I knew Chloe felt it too. So I made the difficult decision to sell it. We needed a completely fresh start, a clean slate, far away from all the ghosts and the public scrutiny. Brenda, true to the court's expectations, spiraled further. With no assets and a mountain of debt, she faced bankruptcy and destitution. She had lost everything she had and everything she thought she was building with Chad, all for a fraudulent dream. She truly was alone. Chloe and I began looking at houses in a new town, a couple of hours away. We needed to be somewhere fresh, somewhere without the constant reminders, without the whispers and the pitying glances. It was a chance to rebuild, to heal. During this time, I started getting calls, other victims of Chad's scams. They'd found my name through court records or news reports. They wanted to share their stories, to connect, to find some solace in collective justice. It was a strange kind of support group, but it helped. Knowing that Chad would pay for what he'd done, and that Brenda would face consequences for her complicity, brought a perverse comfort. The local news had a field day with the story. Local businessman and former employee charged an elaborate fraud scheme. They covered every twist and turn, exposing Brenda and Chad's actions to the entire community. Our faces were everywhere, not explicitly named, but recognizable. It was humiliating, but also, in a way, vindicating. Everyone knew the truth now. Sitting in our new, quiet house, packing boxes, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, yes, that justice was being served. Relief, that the endless legal battles were over, but mostly a profound emotional exhaustion. The weight of betrayal, the anger, the grief, it had taken its toll. But Chloe was thriving in her therapy, and we were together. That was all that mattered. The news finally came down. Chad Dixon was convicted on all counts. Grand theft, multiple counts of fraud, even identity theft from some of his more vulnerable victims. He was sentenced to a substantial prison term. Not long enough, NGL, but it was something, a measure of justice. His reign of charm and deceit was over, at least for a very long time. Brenda's fate was a slow, painful unraveling. She faced multiple civil lawsuits from Chad's other victims, all seeking restitution for the money she helped him steal. And the criminal charges for her complicity were still pending. Her lawyer was doing what they could, but with all the evidence, it was an uphill battle. She eventually declared bankruptcy, losing absolutely everything she had. Her remaining meager assets, her dignity, her entire public persona, all gone, replaced by shame and isolation. Chloe and I finally settled into our new home, a small, cozy place on the outskirts of a town a few hours away. It was quiet here, peaceful. No whispers, no pitying glances, just a fresh start. We painted the walls, chose new furniture, made it ours. Slowly, painstakingly, we began to heal. Chloe, my incredible daughter, thrived. The new school was a good fit and she made new friends. She found strength in our resilience, in the unbreakable bond we forged through the fire. She's still in therapy, processing everything, but she's stronger, more self-aware. She inspires me every day. Me, I found a new sense of peace. The rage and the relentless need for evidence had subsided, replaced by a quiet purpose. My focus was Chloe, our future, and my own well-being. I started working out again, something I'd neglected for years. I picked up my old hobby of woodworking. I learned to cook, badly at first, but Chloe was a good sport. It was about rediscovering myself, about finding joy in the simple, everyday things. I still get updates on Brenda occasionally, usually through Mr. Harrison or some distant family member who occasionally hears from her. She continues to unravel. Destitution, regret, isolation. She chose a fantasy, a life of deception, and it cost her everything. She's a shell of the woman I married. A cautionary tale of what happens when you chase greed and blind ambition over love and integrity. Reflecting on it all, it's clear the moral consequences for Brenda were devastating. Her choices, her blind pursuit of Chad's fake future, destroyed her marriage, her relationship with her daughter, her career, and her reputation. She gambled everything on a lie and lost it all. There's a profound sadness in that, a waste of a life. But honestly, I don't feel anger anymore. Just nothing. Numbness. This whole ordeal, as incredibly painful as it was, forced me to confront a lot of things. It taught me about my own strength, my own resilience. It taught me the unwavering power of integrity, even when faced with unimaginable betrayal. I learned that I can stand on my own 2 feet, that I can protect my daughter, that I can rebuild from the ashes. I also learned the hard way about the importance of transparency and honesty. Moving forward, I'm committed to fostering relationships built on genuine trust, where there are no hidden compartments, no secret flash drives, no burner phones. Chloe, in her quiet, determined way, has helped me embrace new joys. Simple things, like a movie night or a hike in our new local park. We recently adopted a golden retriever puppy, a ball of fluff and boundless energy. He's a symbol of new beginnings, of unconditional love, of the future. We even started planning a big trip next year, just the 2 of us, to celebrate our resilience, our healing, and our enduring connection. I look at Chloe now, laughing with her new friends, happy in our new home, and I feel a profound sense of closure. The past is still a part of our story, a scar, but it doesn't define us. We faced the darkness, navigated the storm, and came out stronger on the other side. I'm ready for whatever the future holds, with Chloe by my side, Because ultimately, the cost of betrayal is immeasurable, but the power of integrity, that lasts forever. This whole ordeal, NGL, forever changed me and Chloe. Chad Dixon got what he deserved, a long stint in prison, but Brenda's consequences are still playing out. She's facing civil lawsuits that will bury her in debt for life, probably criminal charges too. She declared bankruptcy, lost everything, and lives with the crushing weight of public shame and destitution. She chose a fantasy over her family, and that choice cost her absolutely everything. For Chloe and me, we're rebuilding. We're in a new town, new home, creating new memories that aren't tainted by betrayal. Chloe is thriving, resilient beyond her years, and our bond is stronger than ever. I've learned that true integrity isn't about never making mistakes, but about how you face them. The pain was immense, but it forged a stronger, clearer path for us. We learned that the cost of betrayal is astronomical, but the peace that comes with honesty and fighting for what's right is truly priceless.